Hi everybody, Cheryl and Lady coming to you from the Ladies Garden and Home, and today we're doing Seed Saving 101. So I hope you join us. You know, it was over the winter that I had a little chat and about the benefits of growing a garden. And I'll link that video if you want to watch it. But in it, I talked about food security when you grow your own garden, and that was before we saw major hikes in the gas prices, before Ukraine. So we didn't have the worry that farmers have today about not being able to get fertilizer. Which is a worldwide problem, not just a problem in the United States. And we didn't have the sky-high inflation. So they're talking literally today about food shortages that we may have in the coming months, especially over winter, which is pretty frightening if you've never really lived through a bad recession before. People my age, of course, we went through the 70s and 80s. Inflation was very high, but it was manageable, and our parents managed. We had one car, both worked. Of course, the people in the Depression went through much worse. So, you know, that generation, if you could learn from a grandparent or even a great-grandparent on how they handled the Depression, a lot of lessons to be learned. Anyway, I'm not trying to lecture or anything, but I do want to prepare people as best as possible for if there does happen to be not just a food shortage, but a shortage in being able to find seeds for next year. I've encouraged everybody to put in a fall garden. I encourage everybody to put in a summer garden. If you haven't put in a summer garden yet, you still have time to get certain crops in. If you haven't put in a fall garden yet, now is a great time to do that. But as the spring crops, the cool weather crops, are starting to peter out, they're starting to also, many of them go to seed. The lettuces, the Brussels sprouts, and of course, as the warm weather crops like the tomatoes and the cucumbers and the peppers start coming into harvest, now is a good time to harvest those seeds and save them. So I'm going to teach you how to do that. Sorry, this is long-winded, but I think this is a very important topic because just 2 years ago in 2020, when we had food shortages then, and I know I always talk about the celery story, but there was no celery to be had in the supermarkets. And I realized at that point, there was also no bread. At that point, I needed to start growing and also learn how to bake bread. Anyway, so let's begin. So I thought for ease of explanation, I would group things into different kind of categories. This is not scientific. It's just something that I think makes sense. So the first category would be the things that grow with the fruit and the seeds inside the fruit. Pumpkins, squash, peppers, cucumbers, tomatoes would be in this category, but I don't have any ripe tomatoes to show you. Eggplant would be in this category. The next category would be the pods, things like peas, beans, and actually a lot of brassicas, things like this is Brussels sprouts, this is arugula, so that lettuces would fit into this category, the pod category. And then the other category would be the flowering category, things like your herbs, like dill, flowers like zinnias, sunflowers, marigolds, and different kinds of alliums like your onions and your leeks, and also root vegetables like beets, carrots. There are a couple of different supplies that you might want to have on hand when you're saving seeds. The first thing I like to start with is a white plate that has a little bit of a lip to it. It just kind of helps helps you be able to see the seeds a little bit better. Parchment paper. Some people dry seeds on paper towels. I personally don't like to do that because I find that they sometimes stick to the paper towel and dry that way. Whereas parchment paper or wax paper, they kind of slide right off. Then to store them, I use just plain little envelopes or paper bags, and also use these for drying, and large paper bags as well. So just a note, you don't have to save seeds just from what you grew. You can also save seeds from things that you buy at the grocery store. And in fact, that's what I did. I harvested seeds from what I bought at the grocery store when it was available during the pandemic, when seeds were in very short supply. So you can do that. My recommendation to you, though, if you are going to do that, is go with organic, because then you know it's a non-GMO seed. And now you'll not know if it's a hybrid or not, and I'm going to go into that in a minute. I'm going to cut in actually with an explanation of the hybrid versus heirloom that I did in another video. An heirloom variety means it stays true to type. So you can save the seeds and you'll get the same characteristics of the parent plant generation after generation. This was a regulation enacted decades ago so that home gardeners could be assured if they saved seeds, they'd have the same variety they planted before. A hybrid is a type of plant that has been naturally cross-pollinated with another variety of the plant to improve certain characteristics, to be more tolerant to cold or heat, to be sweeter, smaller, hotter, tastier, larger, even more resistant to certain diseases. Many gardeners, including myself in the past, have said that you won't be able to collect seeds because they'll revert to the characteristics of one of their parent plants. It may not be true to the type you want. But if you're in a situation that seeds are in short supply and a hybrid is what you have on hand, it's better to plant those seeds and grow those plants than to go without. You'll still be a pepper, but not necessarily hotter or less disease tolerant or whatever you bought it for in the first place, but it'll still be homegrown food. I'm going to do a cucumber, and I'm going to show you this. This is going to be pretty much almost exactly the same when it comes to any of your pumpkins, your squashes, your watermelons. Like I said, anything that has kind of it's inside the fruit. So I showed you in my last video a cucumber that got away from me, and I thought it was perfect ripeness for harvesting the seeds. You see how it's yellow and a little orangey and swollen? It is way past the time that it would be tasty to eat. However, I'm going to harvest the seeds out of here and I'm going to plant them this week. Okay, just cut it open and you literally just scoop out the seeds. Because what we're going to do is we're going to put them in water and we're going to let them soak for a good 3 days or so. Okay, so we have our seeds here and we're going to just put some water in the cup. Stir it up. Now I leave it by the sink as a reminder for me to stir it about twice a day or so, but if I leave it out and I can see it, I remember to do that. All right, this has been sitting for 3 days, maybe 4, I don't know. So once you go to strain it, you're going to notice if there's any floating on top. If any are floating on top, that means that they're not viable seeds. So go ahead and just throw those away and stick to the ones that are at the bottom. So just letting you know, this was for demonstration purposes only. If I was really harvesting for seed saving these cucumbers, I would want them much more ripe. Okay, so now we're just going to rinse them off. And the purpose of fermenting them or keeping them in the water for a couple of days is to really help the flesh come away from the seed. If you do have any extra flesh in there, just remove it and toss it. But it just helps clean it up a little bit better. All right, just spread them out. Don't let them touch each other too much, because then they'll stick together. And then we're going to put it in a cool, dry place and out of the sun to dry. Although I put peppers in the same category, you may not have to do the fermenting process in the water, because generally the seeds are pretty dry already. You just kind of need to scoop them out. The one thing, though, I will say is I don't have any completely mature peppers yet. It's still pretty early in the season. But if you've got a pepper that is supposed to be red when mature, like your jalapenos, like your chilies, if you have one that's supposed to be yellow at maturity, like, say, a banana pepper or something, wait till then to save the seeds, because you want them at full maturity in order to have viable seeds. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the things that come in pods. So those are your peas, your beans. This was Brussels sprouts, the arugula. And I'm going to show you outside some examples of when they're ready and when they're not. Now these beans are garbanzo beans. Actually, there are three kinds of beans growing right now. Garbanzo beans, cannelloni beans, and kidney beans. We're just going to let them dry right here on the plant. And come fall, when they're totally brown, or whenever they turn totally brown and dry up, then they'll be ready to not only cook with, but also save for seeds for next year. And these are Brussels sprouts. As you can see, they're in different phases of being ready to harvest the seeds. They're still quite yellow, some green, some just starting to turn brown at the top. See, that looks like it's ready. That does not, it's yellow. These couple of pea plants I decided to leave in and let them really dry. So I get nice crackly seed pods. So this can be a little bit tedious, but I don't know. I kind of find it fun. Here's the pea pod, okay? And these were sugar snap peas. Do this with all my seeds once they're dry. Is I take a little envelope, I write what they are, and the year. And before I put them away, I use 2 paper clips, one on either side, so that they don't get loose in the envelope. And basically, the same holds true for the smaller size pods. It's just a little bit smaller. That's why a white plate is really, it's going to be your friend, because you're going to be able to see the little seeds much better. Okay. So my onions and leeks are not quite ready for harvesting. I'll show you right now. This onion has stopped blooming and has started to form its seed heads. But they're not ready yet. They're still green. And when they're a dark black and this whole head is dried up, it'll be time to put them in a paper bag. This dill you can see in different stages. Here it's flowering. Here it's starting to seed up. Still too green. And this portion of the bed is spinach that I let bolt, meaning go to seed. And it looks like it's nice and dry, but if you get closer, you notice that it's still a little yellow. It's not quite brown. For marigolds and zinnias, even sunflowers, what you're looking for when you're saving the seeds is not just mostly dead. You want it very dead. Here's a good example. It's crackling, and then you see the seeds inside. For the flowering seeds, the ones like this dill and the spinach I showed you, what I do for those is I put them in either a large, depending on the size, or a small paper bag when I harvest them. I make sure that they're very dry, and then when I'm ready to put them away and put them in my seed library, I just take the heads, and I do this whether it's this dill or carrots or the onions or spinach. And now you can also just shake these and do the same thing directly into the brown paper bag, which is fine. You could do that too. But I'm not going to be storing them long term in the paper bags, so I like to get them into the smaller envelope when they're ready. So this dill, I believe, is Giant Mammoth, something like that. That's the variety. Anyway, you just do like this, and they drop straight down into the plate. The dill seeds are these little oval black things, but then there are very, very tiny little pieces of stem. To be frank with you, I don't care if those go into my envelope or not. It's natural material. It's not a seed, but if that gets into the ground when I'm planting, what difference does that make? That's just my opinion. Some people, I guess if you're a commercial seed grower, everything has to be pretty, but that's the beauty of doing things on your own. And then I just slide it in. There, we've done some seed harvesting. Lots of people use different things to store their seeds, plastic bags, plastic containers, glass jars. That's all great. I prefer using these paper envelopes because if there's any kind of dampness to them still, then they will continue to dry. As long as I'm keeping them out of the sun and in a cool, dark place, I don't run the risk of them going moldy. So people have different ways of how they store their seeds. Some do it by variety, some do it by time of year when you plant. Personally, I'm a very simple person. I like alphabetical, and I don't do alphabetical by variety. I do it literally by plant. So all of the squashes together, all of the tomatoes, all of the lettuces together. And I used to do it in this box. It's just a cardboard photo box. But I upgraded this year because I did end up buying a lot more seeds this year. And I like it. I mean, it's big and bulky, but it does keep them nice and secure. But that being said, because I don't like putting the seeds that I just harvested in plastic until I know that they're bone dry, I'm going to keep the ones that I just did today and the ones throughout the year in here for at least until next season, to allow them to still get some airflow in the cardboard and to dry properly. And then just to make sure that the seeds stay dry, I add these moisture absorber packets. They're like the little silica packets that you get in your shoe boxes when you buy shoes. This is a little bit bigger, but you know, just to make sure that they stay dry. Well, I hope this was good information for you. I hope it's encouraged you to start saving some of your seeds, whether you got them in your garden or you're going to buy them at the grocery store or farmer's market. It's a good idea to ensure some food security, especially when globally they're predicting food shortages, which it doesn't bode well. No need to panic if you're prepared, right? So, anyway, I hope you liked this video. If you did, please give it a like. I hope you subscribe and hit that little alert bell so you'll see when other videos that I make come available. And it's Friday night. I'm going to relax a little bit, and I wish you a wonderful weekend. And thank you very much for joining us from the Ladies Garden Home. Enjoy your gardening journey.